Hello, everybody, and welcome to the brand new season of the Say Report, season 5. Everybody, we are wrapped on season 4. We are here, and we are ready to go. We kicked off this year already with some pretty pretty intense new new world order type bullshit in this country, and Devin and I have decided that we needed to put a definitive line between what was and what will be in this in this world. So here we are at the beginning of what will be. I am still coming to you live from Utah. This is Sejan Sarowick here in the basement in Bountiful, Utah. But from what I understand, Devin is no longer in the basement in Coventry, Rhode Island. Where are we, Dev?
Oh, no, I'm still definitely in the basement of Coventry, Rhode Island. Hi, Devin Decker, host companion extraordinaire. Um, I just, I'm no longer under all of the water pipes for outside. Um,
Probably a smart move 5 years into us doing a podcast that maybe we move you out from under the detrimental water pipes of your basement.
I
Yeah.
think more importantly is the fact that literally all of the equipment was front and center below this major pipe. And we had a small flood in the basement over on the washing and drying side, right? Because I feel like every basement has the storage side and the washer dryer side.
I mean, no more is that more definitive than in the Utah area where everybody has a half finished basement, and guess what half is not finished?
Is it the laundry side?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Like that is always the half to be unfinished in every house you go to look at.
Yeah, which makes kind of a lot of sense when you really think about it. But, you know, we had a flood over there, and I'm just like, I need to change things. Also, as we go into month 78 of the COVID quarantine, I am now working from home all days, not even like go in once a week to check the mail. So I needed a proper workspace.
Welcome to the other side.
Yeah. So I combined the podcast space and the workspace now. And it's actually a little bit more open air too. I mean, you saw it, but other people haven't because I'm not regularly running tours of my basement pre-COVID. But I was up against that wall and, you know, I couldn't see anything. Now I'm facing another wall, but I could actually look out and see the other half of the basement. And there's 3 monitors instead of just the one. It feels good. I feel like I'm going to be accomplishing a lot when I'm working from home. So that's something.
Man. Living that multi-monitor life. I love it. No, I'm a big fan. My setup is ridiculous here and has only gotten more ridiculous the more time that I have spent at home. But it's been pretty fabulous. If you had told me that my most solid, comfortable career in the last 20 years of my life was going to be literally 3 feet from my own bed, I never would have believed you. But here I am.
That's my big fear about the working from home is one day I'm going to have to go back into the office. That's just the nature of the job that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready for that. And I say that like a week into working from home full time.
Yeah. I was in the shower this morning, my morning shower. Anybody that knows me knows that I will take multiple in a day, including a bath at some point. But yeah, so the morning shower today, as I sat there and I was just like, oh, this is good. I am almost ready for work. I am going to be there. Man, I cut it real close today, though. I got up 20 minutes before I had to go to work instead of my usual 30 minutes. And then it occurred to me that I was like, shit, if I ever have to go back to the office, I'm going to have to add like an hour to all of that, and that sucks.
Yeah, I will say I have kept my regular routine. I'm out of bed at the same time, but, you know, it's a longer shower. I've just added my commute time to my shower time.
Yeah, the lesser man in me was about to give you some shit about seeing how long that lasts. But you know what? I'm rooting for you. I hope that you can keep that up. It was a thing that when all of this first started, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, where like I had that hope, I had that dream. It was not early enough in the year to be a New Year's resolution, but it pretty much was, right? It was like my COVID resolution was that even though I was not going into the office, I was gonna damn well act like it. I mean, even down to getting like dressed, right? And slowly as the months went by, certain little edges got kind of sanded away here and there, and now I basically you're lucky if I put clothes on before I start talking to anybody at work.
I mean, you say all of that. You say that you're rooting for me, but I have to imagine that in our career choice, right? That not at least what we went to school for. Everybody who has a degree in the arts is probably familiar with The Lost Weekend, that wonderful written story about a writer just going blotto all weekend and losing everything. And I can't say that it was a lost weekend, this first post working from home weekend, but it was certainly a misplaced weekend. Like I was saying to you right before we started recording, I just woke up from a nap, and I've lost count of how many naps I took with these days home. Like this weekend, it didn't feel like a weekend. Like there's the seedy underbelly of working from home. Is maintaining a work-life balance is not super easy. Plus, I was doing like heavy lifting to move my basement the way that I have in order to restructure and rebuild. I'm ready to go back to work, even though it's work from home, and then I am going to have to try to figure stuff out so that next weekend does not become another misplaced weekend.
Yeah, I'm no expert on the no work life. Like there are people out there that like heavily subscribe to the idea that like work is not supposed to be your life, and I like to think that I'm one of those people that is like I am not defined by my job, right? But there is something really 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 comforting about the compartmentalization of like, this is where I work, this is where I don't work, and when I am not at the workplace, I do not work. And I think part of that comes from being a teacher for almost a decade. You don't get that opportunity, right? Like even if you're done in the school, you still bring your work home to grade it, right? Like that's as much as it's a stereotype, it's a stereotype for a reason. Like teachers are never not teaching. Like especially nowadays with things like emails from parents and things like that, right? And so the ability now in the career that I'm in to not do that, to not bring my work home with me, I literally can't and shouldn't, is really appreciated. And even me working from home, there is a definitive time like where I'm just like, nope, I no longer work. And my computer literally, like, I close down the program that we use for work and I don't open it back up until the next morning. So like there is something, like, I totally get that. There is something about having that nice like physical like line for like, once I cross this boundary, I am no longer at home, and then once I cross back, I am no longer at work. And not having that is something to deal with.
Right. I mean, and it's so I'm 10 years removed now. Like this is the 10-year anniversary. I think it'll officially be the 28th of January, but we're 10 days away, right? So I can, it's where my mind is at from when I stopped working for Carnival Cruise Lines. That stopped 10 years ago. And the worst part about that job was that I lived where I worked. Mm-hmm. Like specifically, there was no work-life balance because even when I wasn't working, I was still at work technically. Mm-hmm. And especially as someone who took, like, cruising was the vacation that my family took, I feel like that's how you get a job on a cruise ship. Like that has to be the origin of almost every cruise ship worker, is that they went on a cruise ship once as a kid and were like, this is fun, I'll make this my career, not realizing that it's fun as a passenger, maybe not necessarily as a crewman.
You're talking about the Disney actor problem, right? The what do they call them when they sign up? You're not an employee. You're an actor. I forget what the word is.
I believe it's an actor because if you're on stage whenever you're working at Disney, right. That's
which allows them to make really gross things in contracts, like, hey, you have to maintain a weight of 120
degrees, yeah,
120 degrees, a weight of that. No, but but anyway, like, gross stuff aside, like that, like, you don't end up working for Disney if you didn't go to Disney when you were a kid and love it. Like nobody just like pulls it out of their ass one day and is like, you know what I'd like to do? Sell my soul to this company for all it's worth for the next like 6 months. Yeah. No, man,
oh my God, yeah. And that internship program at Disney is awful. You are an indentured servant. Like, I whatever, come at me, Disney. It's just true. I've read the literature. It's certainly something that I've considered and friends and family of mine have considered. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't a good deal. You know, that like they're paying you in a place to live.
Yeah.
And just a place to live.
Oh yeah, well, but that's the thing is like not that I'm forgiving Disney for those kinds of internships, but that is most internships nowadays in this country, right? Is like the idea that like, yeah, no, we were not going to pay you. Like the most you get is a stipend, and that stipend will maybe cover McDonald's every day.
Yeah. It's weird. And, you know, this seems like an interesting conversation to be having as the debate about a $15 minimum wage has just raged on in this country all weekend.
Yeah, well, and we seem to have like it's only now a rumble in the background, but one that is still going on is the idea of the UBI, as we are now facing down what could be another year of working from home for a lot of people. And like Yang has announced his candidacy for mayor of New York and stuff like that. Like the conversation about the idea of a universal basic income is not dead, and it is interesting to me how we are not willing to use those words right now. And I don't know if it's because we just are holding our breath waiting for the fucking inauguration to happen, and then after that we can start talking some shit. But like, but yeah, the idea of the $15 minimum wage and all of the terrible misinformation going on around about that, like the bullshit of like, hey, you know, I believe the exact term was, if you make it a $15 minimum wage to work at Taco Bell will become a sit-down restaurant.
That's exactly the one. Or have good luck, have fun paying $38 for a burrito from Taco Bell was another one that I saw. Taco Bell really took the brunt of it. I have to blame Demolition Man. I feel like Demolition Man is really the one where they're like, we got to take aim at Taco Bell because how are they going to win the franchise wars? What?
That's why the rest of the world talks about it like it's Pizza Hut.
Well, and that's why the rest of the world has, you know, $22 is the minimum wage in Sweden. I had to run a check on the system last night, and Will was the only person up. You know, thank God for friends, you know, 12 to 14 time zones away from you, because when it's midnight for you, it's lunchtime for them. And we talked about the minimum wage in Australia is $27. So, you know, maybe making it Pizza Hut that helped to move it along.
Yeah. But all of those people that mention that bullshit never think about the actual math that was done when this conversation first started all those years ago. And the king of the douchebags themselves, Mr. One Papa John, pointed out that what he would have to do is add 50 cents to the price of every pizza if he really wanted to pay his people minimum wage $15. And I think that also included the idea of healthcare at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And that was the math, 50 cents. And he tweeted that at the time when he was one to tweet almost as much as like Trump. And he was pretty much lambasted for that, because everybody out there was like, okay.
Basic human rights at 50 cents a pie? That's a bargain.
Exactly, 50 cents, and my fellow man gets to like fucking see Christmas is like is a pretty decent way to go about it, man. Man, I just hope Shaq's doing better with that place than Papa John himself.
That's right. It's weird that Shaquille O'Neal is invested in Papa John's, and it's still called Papa John's. I have heard rumors that their new stuffed crust pizza, the cheese in the crust, is some sort of super cheese, because regular cheese does not stretch this long.
It's that Shaq magic, man. I mean, once you get him in there.
Yeah, once you have a genie in the kitchen.
Yeah, once you have Kazam over every pizza.
So you mentioned the inauguration, and I would be remiss to not talk about the fact that we are 2 days away, and I know everything's not going to be different come the 21st of January, but on another level, I kind of feel like it is.
I mean, here's the thing. So I was very much of the same mindset. The idea that like, it's not going to fix itself overnight. And like, but you're right. Like there's going to be a sigh of relief, you're right, the next day for sure. And I get that that's where you're going. However, all of that shit when that came out, where Biden over the last couple of days is like, by the way, I'm just going to fucking just like executive order half of this shit into being like for day one. Apparently a lot is going to change overnight.
That's a good point. I mean, but really all I was considering is that, like, we can have conversations. This discussion that come the 20th, Trump will no longer receive intelligence briefings, which, yes, that's what happens when you're no longer the president. You know, we take away the password and we change all the locks at the White House.
Yeah.
It's happened at least 44 times up to this point.
I'd say we take away his nuclear code key, but you know they just gave him some Playmobil keys day one anyway. But yeah,
you say that, but I don't believe it. They probably gave him an actual football. The sign,
but it was glow in the dark. They were like, "Yeah,
this is the nuclear football." See, right there is where I can't think of the guy who said I have become death incarnate, and that really upsets me right now. It's got a signature on it.
The guy that created the atom bomb and despised himself for it.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I can't think of his name right now, and I'm very upset about that. But yeah, like it's one of those situations. But then there's also the discussion like, why is he getting intelligence now that he's been impeached twice? And it's like, that's a good question. You know, you're not wrong. People asking that question, and where I take solace is the fact that the one thing a President Trump presidency, right, Donald Trump in the White House proved to me is that there is no Men in Black. There can't be a Men in Black. Yeah. And not just because if there were a Men in Black, it would have been, hello, look at this picture of the Men in Black. I'm Donald Trump. That was a terrible Donald Trump. I don't know why I tried it. Everybody tries it, and I judge them all. What?
My favorite Donald Trump I've ever heard.
These are the facts. No, like he would have had pictures of the Men in Black. He's like, this is Agent J. He's a very good agent. You might remember him from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I keep going. Please, I love this. This is amazing.
But like, let alone the fact that he would have tweeted about it if there were a Men in Black, right?
For sure.
All of this fear about what Donald Trump is going to do after his presidency comes to a close on Wednesday, we wouldn't be experiencing it because we would have neuralizers. And 12:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, after Joe Biden has taken the oath of office, you would be like, I'm right here, Mr. President, for the archive. And then, like, for the last 4 years, you've been, I don't know, the best Fortnite player in the world. And then we give him back Twitter, and he's like, I'm the best at Fortnite. Nobody's killing more hamburger-headed people than me, both on and off the field.
Twitch tried to ban me, but you know they can't do that. I'm going to go to Congress and make sure that Twitch can't ban me.
I'm reopening Mixer. I have bought Mixer from Microsoft. Good friend Bill Gates.
Oh, shit. Man,
because that's what you would do. You wouldn't let him go out into the world and be like, I'm gonna still be involved in politics, right? 4 years from now, watch out for the return of the Trumpinator.
I am not saying this because I think it's true. I know that it is a common conspiracy theory, and any conspiracy theory nowadays is a dangerous, slippery slope to the like worse and worse shit. So I'm not saying this as somebody that's like, this is how it is. But the idea that they have been feeding him fake intelligence for the last so often, and that when he leaves, they're going to continue to just feed him worse and worse fake intelligence, and this will have a double-edged sword of him not having the right info. But also on top of that, if we ever hear the incorrect info come out of anybody's mouth, we know Trump talked to that guy. If in 15 years, or what's the statute of limitations on shit? What is it, 30 years when they have to release the files?
Yeah. Even
though everything will still be redacted when they release it, as we learned with everything about JFK. But anyway, but every 30 years, right, when they release that info, if we find out that somebody was like, yeah, we decided that day 28 of his presidency, we were just going to start feeding him bullshit information, I wouldn't blame anybody. Let me put it that way.
I would be fucking terrified if that were revealed, because on fake information, he was able to demolish as much of our democracy as he did. And that's just the truest statement I can make on that.
Yeah. I don't want to go any darker on this, because there's a whole universe where what is happening on Wednesday is not happening, and I don't want to think about that.
I feel bad for those people. We think we're in the darkest timeline with COVID-19, but there is a darker timeline where we have 4 more years.
Yeah.
of COVID plus DT in office, and that's just terrifying. That's I want to throw up in my mouth even thinking about it. But at the same time, if neuralizer technology were real, right, and like Jeopardy on Wednesday night, it'd be Wednesday night Jeopardy. They just flash everybody, and they're like, last 4 years weather balloon. I think I'd be okay with that too.
Oh shit. Yeah, man.
I mean, is Jeopardy it? Like, what is something that everybody watches?
I don't know. With the Big Bang Theory gone, the CIA has lost their way to
I mean,
speak
they still
to
got
everyone
young
in the country
Sheldon,
at once.
right? Young Sheldon has to work on some level. I mean, maybe it was the Connors. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Last Man Standing? It has to be, there has to be like a cadre of 6 television shows that they use for the neuralizer technology if it were real. And I am saying this all, none of this is real. None of this is something that I ascribe to. In fact, everything that I'm saying is in proof of the fact that there isn't a Men in Black service out there. They can't be.
You know what it is? It's The Office on Peacock. That's why they want you to watch it.
Boom. Speaking of Peacock, Yellowstone. I've been watching Yellowstone on Peacock. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
All right. Great. Peacock, you got one. Good for you.
They got my dad, and I happen to share a space with him.
Oh my god. I like the absurdity continues. The incomplete commercials have gotten so out of control that on Twitch and YouTube, which I'm not going to be ashamed to admit that I own a premium subscription to YouTube, so like I don't see ads. Twitch, I only watch people that I like pay money to subscribe to. I don't pump out $300 a month in order to make sure that I can watch 1,000 streamers and shit like that. But like the guys that I watch in both of those places, the people that I follow in both of those places, I don't get ads, and I like that life. And like, so I know that I always have to temper myself when people complain about things like YouTube and Twitch and the ways that like ads have really become super invasive in those places, because I don't feel that way. But then I have to remind myself that the reason I don't feel that way is because I pay good money to not feel that way. With that being said, even with paying that money, I've been getting ads. Like, it's been super weird. I'll be watching a YouTube video, and for like a split second, like I couldn't even tell you if it was more than like 2 seconds, it'll come on and it'll be like, The Peacock, The Office on Peacock, and then it'll disappear. And I'm like, I wasn't supposed to get an ad. I'm paying to not get ads. And like, and if you look at the timeline, there's no little yellow marker for ads, so I wasn't supposed to get an ad. So something's going on in both of those places right now where the ads that I am paying to not see are like squeaking in, but then like the algorithm kicks in and remembers I'm not supposed to get ads and like turns them off like immediately. And again, it's more annoying than if I got a full ad, which we kind of talked about the other day. But like the fact that I'm getting like a second of an ad every 3 minutes on a YouTube video when I'm not supposed to get any ads is kind of worse than just getting the full ad.
Yeah. And I mean, the real complaint in both of those places about ads is from the creators, not from the viewers.
Yeah.
Because it's Twitch coming out and saying, if you haven't run an ad in such and such amount of time, we're going to run an ad for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. What? Mm-hmm. No, I don't want that. And well, I would understand, because we've had a lot of DMCA issues, right? Digital Millennium Copyright Act, for people who don't know the name of it. And even if you do know DMCA, you might not know what those letters stand for. I think the reason we've seen the bump and increase in it is because we've seen more predatory actions from these content creation websites in order to make sure they're getting their beak wet.
Uh-huh.
And that's why they're like, no. Like, it was okay when, people had the choice to run ads, but now that you guys are running the ads, you can't use, Superbase. I forbid it.
Yeah. I still cannot believe that Twitch has not come down with, like, a directive on whether or not it's okay that Burger King bought up a bunch of those, like, subs. Did you hear about this?
No, what?
Like, probably, oh man, at this point, probably 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm probably not even getting the timeline right on it. Matt Pat does a whole video on it if you really want to look into this. But essentially what Burger King did is when Twitch introduced the idea of like the you can pay $1 for like a shout out, right? They and when I say shout out, I mean like I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. It's not to pay the creator on Twitch. It's not to pay the artist on Twitch to say your name or anything like that. What happens is something they have no control over is like a noise will occur. Like a thing will pop and be like, ah, yeah, like this person paid this money. And Burger King figured out that rather than paying people for like mid-roll or anything like that, they could just like pump a bunch of money into different channels and then just get like a big like Burger King like thing to like pop up in front of everybody's face and a lot of noise to happen. And like and they did this on I don't know, like conservatively like 100 people's like thing, right? Like, and on Twitch that's nothing. That's not even like that's not even a measurable percentage of people on like working on Twitch, right? But they did it enough that they could then create an ad around the fact that they did it and talk about like how like trolly and like mindfucky they are, and like, you know, that anti-marketing that everybody's really into nowadays. Like they were just like, yeah, we did this thing, like, oh god, look at what trolls we are. And it's just like, okay, calm the fuck down. But like on top of that, they also got a bunch of like airtime on these people's channels to like they because this thing would happen and creators would be like, what the fuck was that? And they'd start talking about it and they were like, I think Burger King just paid me $5. Why is Burger King? And then the next thing you know, they've been talking about Burger King for 10 minutes and they didn't mean to be. It was just something that just happened. And people got pissed. And it became this conversation about whether or not what they did was technically illegal. And it wasn't.
No,
it was against terms of service for Twitch. But that means fucking nothing to Burger King because Burger King created a Twitch account, did this shit, and then they left Twitch. So if terms of service gets violated, what's the worst thing that Twitch can do is say, sorry, but we canceled your account. That's fine. They're already gone.
Also, as we've seen with, you know, the quickening and removal of Donald Trump from all social media, he was breaking terms of service all over the place. But it was only because it became an issue on a, you know, national scale that they finally inflicted it.
Yeah.
That they actually said, and you're banned forever from us. Like, we turn a blind eye to the terms of service stuff until there's a bee in the bonnet of Middle America. And that's not true. That's mean to Middle America. But that's what people in boardrooms on both of the coasts would say. Is we have to do something because Ida in Peoria has a problem, and if Ida in Peoria has a problem, we make $10 less a day, and that adds up. That adds up.
I mean, and people talk about terms of service as if they are like written law. Like, I mean, especially nowadays with everything that's going on right now with like Twitter and banning numbers of people and certain people like saying you can't do that infringes on people's rights, and other people pointing out like, no, you had this fight where like companies are allowed to do the things that they want to do because companies are apparently people too. Like, look, none of us are happy about this, but this is what you've been saying all along, right? Is basically my attitude on the whole thing. But like the idea is that people have been holding up terms of service and holding Twitter up and saying, well, oh, if this violates your terms of service here, why doesn't it violate your terms of service there? And we forget that like terms of service are not like fucking like legally binding contracts. They're just these things that say, look, you do this thing and we reserve the right to do that. And that is all that they say. So like in a way they're legally binding, but like with the language of saying if we choose to enforce this is basically the point of every TOS out there. And they get the right, and they have the right as the company to choose to enforce it or not, right? And so like so my anger with a company like Twitch not coming down on a company like Burger King doing what they did only stems from the fact that like they have every right not to, which means that by not doing it, they are saying something, right? Like
that's
when
their statement.
The ball is in your court, to not throw the ball means you were making the choice not to, and then that sucks.
You know what's weird? I'm sorry to do it, but you talking about ball in the court. That movie Rookie of the Year, where the kid, the tendons in his arm are like heal up too strong, and so he's apparently, I don't know, an action figure with throw action.
Kid in King Arthur's Court there. What's his nuts from American Pie?
I can't think of his name, and that makes me
But it's not
sad.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
It's not Joseph
Overseas
Gordon-Levitt.
is-
That the
but
only
that's
baseball
Angels in
movie
the
he was in was Angels in the Outfield.
Angels in the Outfield, right?
No, it's Kevin from American Pie, and that's what we're going to refer to him as. We're going to call him Kevin. Where Kevin can throw a baseball real hard. The idea of like you caught a ball in the stands, throw it back is so fucking stupid.
Right.
Like, no, I mean that's still a home run, regardless of if I throw the ball back in or not. Like that guy hit a home run.
In fact, rather famously, even outside of baseball, it's pretty well known that if you catch a home run ball, you hold the fuck onto it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a piece of history. Like, no matter the game.
Yeah.
Like, it could be game, like, 6 of a fucking exhibition series, and you fucking hold on to that shit.
Dude, it could be the third game of the season, and I don't know, it's the freaking Mariners, and you catch a home run ball, and then it turns out that like the rookie of the year happened to be playing in that game. Not even for the Mariners.
I know.
And it's like, this ball's from that game. It's from his third game. And
God, can you imagine catching a Cubs ball from a couple years ago?
Oh my God,
Jesus,
when they won?
and being like, I got a home run ball from the season when they won the fucking series. Yeah, man. No, you hold on to that shit.
You don't throw it back. And like, it worked out for Kevin in Rookie of the Year. He got to play for the Cubs, which like, so it's kind of like, you know, it's balanced.
I mean, there's no mention of like throw it back, it's their only ball. like that. Like
no, it's not even that. It's that like
you make it a joke about how bad the team is, and it works in the movie, and it legitimizes the weirdness.
No, it's just like, you gotta throw it back, and it's just like, no, he doesn't. He should hold on to it. He just caught a home run ball, and it's, I don't know. You just said ball in your court, and you're not gonna throw it, and I'm just like, yeah, who does that? Who does like, you don't throw it a lot of the time. There's a lot of situations where you don't.
Oh man. Well, if we're gonna be talking about the early '90s, I have something that we need to talk about today.
Perfect.
Because I burned my weekend on the early '90s.
Jesus.
I played through Myst this weekend.
Just Myst, or the whole 5-game series?
No, just Myst.
Okay.
I like Riven, and then eventually you get to like the online multiplayer one and shit like that. I have ducked into those in the past. Here's a secret about me. I don't know if it's much of a secret. I fucking love Myst. I don't know if I've ever talked about that on the show before, but like it is a game that a combination of it hit me at a right time in my life where like learning how to love games and how to play games, which I think is going to be a bigger key here. But also on top of that, it in and of itself was a cultural phenomenon. Like, so this isn't just like, it's not like fucking like Booger Man that also hit me at the right time, but also has not had the lasting impact, shall we say? Right?
I mean, they both had Kickstarters 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's fair. The difference is Booger Man, I think, fell on its face.
Booger Man fell hard on its face.
Yeah. But yeah, so like there's a lot of reasons why Myst really kind of means a lot to me. It's also this weird thing where like I had been watching my dad play puzzly type games for a while in my life. I've talked before about how Link to the Past was like a nostalgic game for me, not because it's one that I played a ton of when I was a kid, but one that I watched my dad play a ton of when I was a kid. And like watching him solve Zelda puzzles and stuff is like a hard, like ingrained memory in my mind. Between that and Civilization, like that was my Super Nintendo like memories are watching him play those games. But Myst was one that he had for the computer, and I don't know how deep he ever truly got into it. I will say this though, he had like the fucking like Prima guide and all that shit like for it. So I don't know if it came as like a package or what, but we had it installed on the computer, and I know that I had watched him play it a couple of times, and I knew we had the guide. So like one time I got it into my head that I thought, I'm gonna play this game and I'm gonna figure the puzzles out. I couldn't for the life of me. If it was not for that guidebook, I never would have made it through that first time that I played it when I was a kid. But like on and off, I have kind of gone back to Myst. So Myst came out in the early '90s, and then they introduced many years later Real Myst, which is Myst done in a 3D environment. So what that means is like the way that you used to travel through Mist is you would have to click forward, and they were just panels, right? So you would take like one step at a time, like really think like really really low grade animation, like you would just like chunk 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 like move through the environment. And then Real Mist was just you could walk forward. That was the development. And people lost their shit. They were like, "Oh my god, I could like I could actually move around."
It's
They've
missed
done
but playable.
yeah, right. They did a little bit more. They did quote unquote create a whole new world. So originally in Mist there is the island of Mist, and then there's four other ages that you go to, four other islands that you go to solve puzzles, and they did introduce a fifth one of those, but it's empty. It's there's not much to it. Not that there's much to the other ones either, but like there's it's not the same as going to the other islands, right? So anyway, so that's what Real Mist is, right? And I got really kind of intrigued because probably 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I don't know when it was actually announced, but I discovered that Oculus is working on a straight up like fully like remastered, recreated version of Mist in the Oculus VR system. And I was like, oh, of course. Of course this is what you do, especially if you're Facebook. You spend all the money in the world to buy one of the most important games of all time. Like and then you do what you can to like put people in that world, which is like something that people have been trying to do forever. I mean, like down to the point where like at one point Disney teamed up with the creators of Mist to actually create a possible quote unquote like Mist kingdom in the Disney kingdoms. Like they have like an island that they own off of the coast of like Florida somewhere, and their plan was to like just drop like groups of 16 people off in the morning and not come back until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And if you had solved the mystery, you'd like win a prize. If not, like it's okay, you still get dinner or some shit. Like there's like that was gonna be a whole thing that Disney was gonna fucking do when Mist was really popular back in the early 90s, right? And so like Facebook deciding like, yeah, we're gonna get in on this shit was not a surprise at all. But it was so like it like set something off in me where I was like, shit, I gotta play Mist again. So I start going back through, and sure enough, I own like Mist and Riven and a bunch of the other Mist games on my Steam account. And I'd boot them up for all of like 10, 15 minutes, and they were somewhat unplayable between the fact that my computer is not top of the line and like those versions of those games have not been updated in like 10, 15 years themselves. So like we're talking about a version of the game that was an update when it came out, but they are already the updates themselves already like 20 years old, right? I don't know how I missed it, but I found out that like there's been Real Mist has been on Switch for a while now. And so like I found it one day just on it, like just offhandedly came across it, and I was like, "Oh no. Like this is the way to do it. This is the way to play this game now." So sure enough, this weekend we had some extra cash lying around from the holiday. You know, we were lucky enough to just get a couple of dollars here and there for like Nintendo points and stuff. Um, Also threw a few coins towards it because we got like I think we talked about this. I got 35th anniversary Mario
Mario.
3D All
Yep.
Stars, right? And that threw like 200 coins onto my account or something, so I could get $2 off there. I got $3 off here, and by the time we scrounged it together, I think I paid all of like $3 for Mist. And I was like, oh yeah, like let's drop $3 and play this game. And I introduced the family to it this weekend, and we got fucking lost in it. Like we were gone. We burned all of Saturday. We played a little bit on Friday night, and once I showed them exactly what the game kind of was, Saturday morning we woke up and we were like, we're gonna get back in a Mist, right? Yeah, and we went back into it, and we
Yeah.
played all day, man. Just like going around, and anybody that doesn't know like what Mist is, it's really hard for me to just like describe it because uh, it's a puzzle game, but the puzzles and what made Myst so important is they are some of the most intriguing environmental like heady puzzles that have ever been created for a puzzle game. So like it's based primarily in the world of like the point and click adventure, right? Like it's like a Sam and Max or like a Monkey Island where like you would run around and like you'd have to find a thing and then use it on another thing, and suddenly those two things together created the solution to the puzzles. So like, oh, you found the jelly, go give it to the ants, and then once they eat all the jelly, then you can get into the anthill and find the key. Like that's the like starting from there, like that's what puzzle games were. Myst was like taking that idea and then throwing it into this fucking like Will Shortz style like New York Times super fucking heady crossword puzzle creator, and then what popped out the other end is just fucking wild. So like you end up on this island and you walk around and there's all this really intriguing stuff that you can see. Like there's a ship that's sunk underwater, and there's these cogs that come up out of the ground, and there's a spaceship off to that side, and there's a clock tower out in the ocean but you can't get to it, and there's like a tree, but the tree is not planted but instead like buried in cement, and you're like, well, how is this even growing out of this ground here, right? And so you slowly start to pick up on a clue here and a clue there where you figure out like, oh, well,
Don't
if I
ruin
do
anything
this,
for me. I got to be
I
honest
won't.
with you. I'm letting you talk. My experience with Myst is 5 minutes in
Hmm.
another East Providence home and being like, okay, but then we got in trouble because we were playing on the computer. Because those kids' parents were like, video games are evil. The devil will get you through your butthole if you're playing video games. You
I
sit on
won't
the
really.
couch and the devil crawls up through the couch, soul through your butthole. These are real things that I have heard in my lifetime. Um, and you know, right? Because we've talked about it. List of games to beat 2021, and there were still some like deficits on that list. I want to put Myst on it, so I
Yeah,
don't want you to spoil any of the puzzle
I won't.
solutions.
I won't.
Um,
But what I will say is this: is that like, look everywhere, click on everything. Like it's definitely one of those games where they haven't quite learned how to draw the eye, right? Like we're talking about like 1994, 1995 for this game. So we're still super early in the idea of like games being developed to really manipulate the user. And I don't mean that in like the negative way that most of the time manipulation is usually used as a word, but like we haven't learned how to do things like make this thing colored in a way that draws the eye, or make this thing bright in a way. Naughty Dog is really famous for this. Like they're really good at putting you into an environment, but like lighting things in a way where like you clearly see like where you're supposed to go. You don't know why that's where you're supposed to go, but you know like that window up there, that one window on the building with the light on is the window you got to get to. And sure enough, you get up to it and you can get into it, right? And so like that comes from this. So don't be afraid to click on things, but like there's you just you it's the way in which that game makes you feel like a fucking genius because it doesn't give you everything that is so satisfying, right? And like, and some of it comes from the fact that I did play it when I was a kid. Like I know that there are like vague ghosts of memories of puzzle solutions in my head as we play it, but I've never gotten as deep into it as fast as we did, and definitely was not the one figuring out every puzzle. I like it was so fun to play it with the family, because like having people sitting there and being like, oh, this one puzzle, like this one problem that's in front of us, we've got to get this one combination on this set of cogs, and like we just can't do it. One person would like sit there for like an hour and be like working on it in a notebook while the rest of us would like go off and do something else on the island, and like being able to then like an hour later them being like, I got it, like go back and we would go all the way back to the rest of the, and like we would, and sure enough like the solution would work. And there's all of this weird there's just all of this weird story stuff that just gets dropped piece by piece to you. You're never told what's happening, right? And so it ends up influencing a ton of games later on. I mean, um not least of which is stuff like The Witness, which I've talked about on the show that I love so much. And there's other puzzle games that really kind of learn how to learn how to tell an environmental story, learn how to give you the information that you need, but never more than you need so that it doesn't ruin things. Like there's a lot of history behind that game. And so being able to like get lost in that this weekend was kind of rad, especially with everything else going on. I think the only time that we ended up stopping was that on Sunday, like we came back to this century because we ended up watching the inauguration concert on Sunday night. But like that was the thing that brought us out of the 90s.
I didn't know there was an inauguration concert. I'll be.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. It was an
Football was
online
on
one.
in my house all weekend, and
Keegan Michael Key and Deborah Messing hosted an inauguration concert, but all virtual,
that's cool.
and it
I
was
can
really
get
cool.
behind
It
that.
was
Yeah.
really cool. Carol King, still a fucking beast. Love her. God, I love her. But yeah.
Nice, very nice. I guess if you're going to talk about the 90s at the length you just did, I'll take the 2000s, Alex.
Yeah.
For a story that I,
Perfect.
I hinted at last episode, but we just didn't have the time for it where we were. And that is Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray have teamed up for another movie. And of course it's for Apple TV Plus, called On the Rocks.
Did they produce it or did they just buy it and because they were like, we're not gonna be able to get this in theaters? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Like,
I can't. That's a step further than I went with this
I
one.
will say, I because of the conversation that we had last week about streaming services and the ways that sometimes they muddy the waters when they tell you that it's an Apple TV original, but like they didn't really have anything with it. They just get to claim the awesome movie after it's been made, right? I just want to make sure that we're clear that I don't think that Apple had anything to do with the actual creation of the film. But yeah,
I would actually disagree in that one, but only because you look at Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray, the last time that they teamed up was for A Very Murray Christmas, which was fully funded by Netflix. So if there's a creative duo out there that understands how to play the internet streaming money game, I would say it's Coppola and Murray.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's the only reason. Again, I don't have any proof to that or anything. Just the fact that they got that made together by going to Netflix and saying, do you want to give us money for this?
Yeah.
And I could honestly see them saying, all right, it's a new thing. Maybe we can, establish ourselves here. Let's see if Apple will give us money. And it seems like that was also Apple's goal with their first year of Apple TV Plus was to find these big voices and offer them a new platform to make and create. Because Spike Lee and Tom Hanks and
nothing against Apple because earlier this year I talked about, or I guess I should say last year, I talked about how happy I was that they stepped in with Killers of the Flower Moon and Scorsese's been wanting to make that one for a while with Leo, and the fact that Apple was we're gonna fund the rest of this movie because nobody else seems to want to, which is ridiculous. It's Leo and Scorsese back together. Why would we not? Yeah. With De Niro, what a weird thing.
And that also speaks to, if you're a creator in Hollywood right now, if you're just a creator in the world, you need to understand how to play the streaming game. And obviously you're going to go anywhere that you can go. And if you've already taken what you can from Netflix, and Netflix at that point, they don't know if your stuff was successful or not. I'm fairly certain that after The Irishman, on the success there, if they had stuck with it, they could have gotten that funding for Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah. But, it's one of those situations where, we can't ask Netflix right now. They just gave us all this money, and right now, even though we're Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, we're untested, we're unproven to the Netflix algorithm.
Yeah, so, and Netflix is so close to the vest that I wouldn't be surprised if even certain higher-ups at Netflix don't know all the numbers all the time.
Exactly. So you just go over to another one and you take the money where you can get it from. It's actually something exciting about the new streaming landscape and also terrifying. It's that same thing. It's taking the studio system, but one rung down. And now that studios are owning the streaming platforms, it goes into a whole other direction. But yeah, so it's one of those situations where if I had to put even money on it, I would probably bet on the fact that Apple did fund this particular project with On the Rocks, but On the Rocks isn't even what I want to talk about. And that's 2020 magic. I want to go back further to the original Sofia Coppola Bill Murray production, Lost in Translation.
Yeah, man.
Because my mother saw an On the Rocks trailer and was like, I'd like to watch that. And my first thought was, I've never seen Lost in Translation. And that's not strictly true, and that's kind of the story that I want to tell today on the Say Report, on this first of our 5th season of the Say Report. And the reason behind that is I didn't know what On the Rocks was, other than the fact that it was Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray. And it was, not a young ingenue, but, Rashida Jones was an ingenue back when Scarlett Johansson was an ingenue. So I could almost understand, knowing nothing about On the Rocks, if On the Rocks were a sequel of sorts to Lost in Translation.
A spiritual sequel for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, it's definitely a spiritual sequel, no doubt in my mind. That when you look at everything about it, but I thought, I had seen 20 minutes of Lost in Translation. That is how much of Lost in Translation I had seen before I decided. Well, it was kind of a global decision that this movie is boring and we're stopping it. And that's the story I want to tell, is why we thought that, because I sat down and I watched Lost in Translation knowing that I was going to watch On the Rocks. And what I will say about On the Rocks is that if you have Apple TV, so don't go out and get it. If you're getting Apple TV in order for like Ted Lasso season 2 and you're looking for something else to watch, On the Rocks is a good choice. It's farcical fun. I had fun with it. But that's it. We're done with On the Rocks because I want to look at Lost in Translation. And watching Lost in Translation as a 35-year-old, I realized why 18-year-old Devin was not ready to watch Lost in Translation.
Okay.
I mean, and the primary reason number one is just I didn't have the life experience that movie was kind of asking for from its audience. If that makes sense. Have you seen it? You've seen Lost in Translation?
Yeah, I saw Lost in Translation, and I'll admit I saw it in theaters and then once or twice after, because it was it was such a big thing when it came out that like people just kept wanting to see it around me.
Yeah,
and I mean, I love that movie. I'm intrigued to hear that you didn't connect with it, because like I guess I would admit that like I never felt like I was Bill Murray in that movie, but like I don't know, I could empathize with him for sure, but yeah, I guess part of me is like Lost in Translation became, and I'm trying not to lump you and anybody you watch this in with, but when I say this, but Lost in Translation became that movie that people would then shit on at parties because everybody else liked it. You know what I mean? Like there's always that thing there's always that attitude of just like, everybody's into Jurassic Park, but I think it's banal, and it's like fuck off. like just,
it's goddamn dinosaurs and Steven Spielberg. What is wrong with you, Dad?
That dude gets ate on a toilet. Shut up. But like there's always this counter move to every movie. Even if a movie gets shit on to hell, then the counter move is for guys at parties to talk about how great they actually think it is, right? And I'm probably more guilty of that than anything else. But there is so Lost in Translation kind of became that thing that a lot of people had a lot of issues with, and I find it really hard to have that conversation now with people, because now people grown up like us who were the ones that at 24 were shitting all over that film at parties, but now in retrospect realize what they were doing, like bringing that movie up actually like creates really awkward situations in a lot of different places. It's a weird movie to talk about with people. So I'm curious to hear where you're going with this.
Okay, good. I'm glad. That's excellent. That means that I've already hooked you. But I will admit freely that watching it as an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, I was 17, because I saw it in 2003. I did not see it in theater. I saw it on DVD, and that actually speaks to truth about what I'm about to share. I wasn't there, right? Like Bill Murray being tired with what he's doing in life, I hadn't done enough in life to be tired. And actually, and this will speak stronger to my second point, I also wasn't there for Scarlett Johansson's character with like I'm done with school and I don't know what to do with this degree. I'm in a marriage because society kind of said I'm supposed to be, and it's not exactly, it hasn't offered me all of the answers. Like she is suffering ennui and directionlessness in a way that when I was 17, I was kind of like just having fun and getting into scraps and adventures with my high school buddies. Yeah. So like neither one of those characters connected to me on any level. So like I was going into that film already an alien species, which brings me to my second point. And the second point of Lost in Translation is everything about that film, the marketing, the conversation. Even you tonight are guilty of it, saying that like I didn't connect with Bill Murray's character. Everything speaks to that being Bill Murray's film, and Bill Murray is not the lead of that film. It's Scarlett Johansson, and granted, that's my interpretation of it now, having seen it, however many years later, but 17 years later.
I don't disagree, man. I love that that's where you fall on it. I think that what it is more than anything is that he's not really like a driving force in that film so much as he just deals with the stuff that happens in that movie. Um, but I think that that's kind of to the point, I
Right.
guess would be this what I say.
Yeah, and I mean, they're both dealing with it. But if I had to talk about whose story that film is, I'd
Yeah.
have to say it's Scarlett Johansson's.
Yeah.
And like, and part of her adventure is finding this guy, this crazy former actor guy, and that just being part of her way of understanding that you're growing up, and like, it doesn't really get better, so you just have to enjoy everything that's going on.
Yeah, I'm having a really I'm having this weird thing in my head right now where I think that Scarlett Johansson, first of all, she gets these kind of roles for a hot second in Hollywood because of the fact that like, you know, I don't know if this is like a secret or a surprise to anybody, but this kind of happened to her. She grew up too fast, right? Like, I mean, she started in like Home Alone 3, and then the next thing you know, like she is actually like a next big fucking thing, right? And I'm thinking of another role just like this is uh just go with it. Is that the name of it? The Woody Allen one that what is his name? Seinfeld and all that we love. David
Larry David.
Larry David. Yeah. Thank you. So the Larry David Woody Allen movie. And Scarlett Johansson plays almost the same role in that, where she is this young ingenue that falls for like the older man. I was gonna say the much too older man, but you know, fuck it, you know, love who you love, which I think is the whole point of that movie, right? Is just go with it. Like, but she ends up with Larry David for the majority of that film, and she steals that movie. Like she walks in, and it becomes this whole thing about her being with him and her choices of like why she chooses to be with this older guy and what it means to her to be in this world of Larry David and all of his older friends and stuff like that. So it's interesting to me that this is just another role where she comes in like this and steals the entire movie from the older white male character. I mean, I wonder if some of this speaks to the fact that like you're talking about Sofia Coppola being the one directing it, and I mean like she's no stranger to like feminist like filming, and I don't mean that she makes feminist films, but like when she films women, it's pretty clear that she is filming them in a very like empowering way. I mean, I think of like Marie Antoinette and stuff.
Yeah. Good pull on Marie Antoinette.
Yeah,
No,
no,
I'm serious. No,
I mean,
you're not.
like,
I mean, like, and On the Rocks is also very much that same sort of, you know, journey with Rashida Jones's character. So yeah, it is. It does speak a lot to Sofia Coppola and that, but also, I mean, we talk about it a lot on this show, which is why I'm like, I want to have this conversation with Sejin. Is marketing is a completely different machine than the creative on a film, and I watched the trailer, right? Because I told my mother, you know, before On the Rocks, I wanted to rewatch Lost in Translation, and I think the whole family really needs to give it another shot. I think that there are some issues, and I cannot wait to share the issues, because honestly, it is like I'm holding the Rubik's Cube, and I realized, oh, this also turns, and it solves the whole thing. I completely understand why the Deckers hate Lost in Translation now. And it's not that it's a puzzle I was working on for 17 years, but it's always been there. And I now have an answer. And I can't wait to get to that point of this story. But we watched the trailer for Lost in Translation when I said you guys might want to give it another shot. And watching the trailer, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's not the movie. That's not the movie. That talks about Bill Murray having this whole thing. And dear God, that's not what this film is about. Like, obviously, you're going to use Bill Murray to sell this movie because he's Bill fucking Murray and he sells things, but it's so not his movie. And there's no bigger explanation of that to me than the third thing I learned while watching Lost in Translation on, well, ironically, the 6th of January. The 6th of January 2021 was important to Devin Decker for other reasons than, you know, the global ones. And that's, I had this real weird animosity towards Scarlett Johansson when I was in high school. And it's not for any sort of like personal reason, right? It's not like Scarlett Johansson had done anything to slight me. It's just that the people that I had decided to spend time with, who I was hanging out with, were all like gaga over Scarlett Johansson. Like, I knew her from Home Alone 3, and I knew her from Ghost World, and those were movies that I came to on my own. And then I'm like, oh, I know this act. That's the girl from Home Alone 3.
Perfect
And,
score all the way, baby. Sorry.
Yeah,
Just had to get that in there.
that's completely understandable. Wimbledon, all this other stuff, right? But these people, so many decisions in what we would do or the movies that we would see or just the conversations we had during the minutia of everyday life revolved around Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I wasn't lying. She became like an it thing in a way that we haven't really had like an it thing since. Like,
yeah, she's definitely a cornerstone of our generation in a way.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is something that we'd have to explore further, but I've never really been the type of person to have that crush on a celebrity. And
when we watch Black Widow, inevitably we're definitely gonna have this conversation. But
right. But it's that wasn't for me. So all these people who are like, we have to see the Scarlett Johansson movie because I love her, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And then, like, I see In Good Company, and I fucking love In Good Company because Dennis Quaid and Topher Grace are just kicking ass. And the people that I saw it with were like, well, Scarlett Johansson wasn't in it enough. And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't her film. It wasn't her movie. The movie was about those two characters. Like, what did you guys think this was going to be? So then when I come to Lost in Translation and I don't have the emotional maturity for the story that I'm about to watch, and I'm there thinking it's a Bill Murray movie, and it's not a Bill Murray movie, and then, to top it all off, the only reason that we're watching it is because Scarlett Johansson is in it.
Yeah.
Like, those three things alone would be enough for me at 17 to be like, I don't really like Lost in Translation. Like, it's not really connecting with me on any of the major points that it would.
We have always stood by the idea that, like, if the context and the environment in which you see a movie is going to play so heavily into how you feel about that movie. Like, it does not matter if it is the greatest movie ever made. Like, we can look at something like The Shawshank Redemption, something that we have held up even quite recently between the two of us as like this is probably like a perfect film that is like out there for the world to look at and hold on to as like the number one film, right? And like, if I saw that movie while I was getting the shit kicked out of me at like the Boys and Girls Club at 7 years old, which happened, like, I wouldn't love that movie, right? It's like there's something about when and how you see a film that's going to dictate how you feel about it for the rest of your life. Just like it is with music, just like it is with TV, just like it is with any form of art. Like, the context in which you take it in matters. It's why museums matter, kids. But like there is definitely something to that for sure. Yes.
Which brings us to point 4, the turn, the prestige, everything that solves this puzzle. My own Mystian puzzle as to why the Deckers did not enjoy Lost in Translation. And I have to say, I have to just remind the audience, right, the listener out there, Sejin and I, the amount of prep that we do for this show is like -2 on a scale of 1 to 10. I just kind of know that I need to be at my computer at 6 o'clock on the Monday when we're going to record. So Sejin and I did not have this discussion beforehand, right? Sejin talking just now about the situation surrounding the viewing of a film having an impact on whether or not you enjoy that film. He got to that all independently. That just happened based on all of the things that I gave him, all of the Legos. He built a spaceship. And here's the engine piece. Do you know when Lost in Translation came out on DVD, Sejin?
On DVD? I'm going to throw a wild guess out there and say like 2007.
Well, it came out in 2003. It released in 2003.
Yeah. So 2004, 2005 for DVD release. Okay.
Oh, no. It released on DVD in 2003.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a 2002 film, which I was very surprised to find out. But the like tail end of the year because it wanted to be an awards season. And it released on DVD on February 3rd, 2003.
Oh.
So I worked at Blockbuster Video. That was my major career throughout my high school throughout my high school days. And one of the perks of working at Blockbuster Video is that you get to rent movies. They receive them the Friday before they come out. so that they can be prepped and put on the shelf right on Tuesday, right? It would suck if you couldn't go in until like 3 p.m. to rent the newest rentals at Blockbuster. So they give them a whole weekend to do it, and you're encouraged to watch the films so that you as an employee can have an intelligent conversation with the guests about it. If they're like, should I rent this movie? And you can be like, no, I hated it because I don't have the emotional maturity. It's not Bill Murray's movie, and fuck Scarlett Johansson. And then they go home with something else. I don't know what else was out that day. But yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yep.
So, Sejin, if it comes out on the 3rd of February, that means that the Deckers watched it over that weekend. Do you know what happened on February 1st, 2003?
No. Was it no.
Super Bowl 37.
I was going to say, was it a Super Bowl? Fuck. Okay.
Super Bowl 37. It was the second Super Bowl that Tom Brady went to after winning in 2001, the first Super Bowl for the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And one of my coworkers at Blockbuster, I'm not gonna blow up his spot because, you know, I've blown it up before and I don't need to do it. He says, I want to watch Lost in Translation. And I'm like, all right, you can come over, we can watch it. And, you know, but the Super Bowl's happening tonight, so we're going to watch Lost in Translation, but then the Super Bowl's going to happen. So we need to be done by this time. So he gets off his shift at 4. He comes over to the house with a copy of Lost in Translation. And the plan is to watch it not in the main family room, right? We're not going to watch it in the main room. The Super Bowl's happening at that night. So we're not going to watch it where it's going to be like in my room or in the basement, right? Like, you understand that, right? If I tell you that.
Right.
But then another congruous point occurred on that. And do you know what occurred on January 28th, 2003?
January 28th, 2003. No.
The nominees for the Academy Awards were announced.
Okay.
And at that point, 2003, and now, right? I'll blow up my father's spot. I don't give a fuck. What's he going to do? Hit me with a belt? He was all about if a movie was nominated for an Academy Award. He would watch that. He would know all the films that were announced. So my coworker arrives on Sunday, and I'm like, all right, we're about to watch Lost in Translation. And my father goes, oh, that was nominated for Best Picture. You guys want to watch it here?
What? So why would he do that, knowing full well what was going on?
Knowing that the Super Bowl is starting at 8 o'clock that night, right? Figuring the amount of time, right? Is like, how long is it? It's an hour and a half. All right, so if we start it now, we're done by 6 o'clock, and then we go right into the Super Bowl. That's fine, right? So, and it's not my plan. It's my father's plan to watch Lost in Translation because he knows this is my chance to do it, and it's nominated for Best Picture. So rather than this being like a basement viewing, it takes center stage in the Decker household. And 20 minutes in, everybody looks at each other except for the coworker who's really enjoying the film and says, this is boring, we need to stop it. Because fucking obviously.
Yeah, we're not gonna risk this. We're gonna risk like even a minute of the Super Bowl for this movie that none of us are really into at the moment. Yeah, man, I can't.
Like, yeah. You want to talk about just the wrong time to like kind of try out a film you're not 100% on. It's Super Bowl Sunday at 4:15 p.m.
I'm going to down this Imodium and X-Lax smoothie, and then we're going to put on the fucking extended edition Lord of the Rings. Let's do it.
Yeah. Like, and I got that, and I'm like, obviously we didn't like this movie. Obviously we didn't like this movie. Yeah, that also, in terms of everything else, takes about 30 minutes to get going. And it's a 90-minute film. Like, he's not out with her having adventures until the 30-minute mark of the film. So 20 minutes, you got sad Bill Murray, and you got, like, lost Scarlett Johansson, and you're like, man, the Super Bowl is in freaking 4 hours. What are we doing with our time?
Man, you know what it is the issue is you didn't have the replacements yet. Once that movie came out, it negated any other movie being watched that
That's
morning.
so true. It's just, but like I couldn't like when I looked at that and I'm like, it came out the third. Wasn't the Super Bowl on the first in 2003? It was. We tried to watch Lost in Translation the same day as the second time the Patriots went to the Super Bowl after winning their first Super Bowl. We were dumb.
Like like why? Oh man, that's nothing was gonna beat that fervor. I mean, like, why weren't you watching pre-shows? Why weren't you watching?
We were like, and that was the full thing. And that's why I like agreed to do it. Is that I don't want to get footballed out. I don't want to get footballed out. So if I go upstairs, I watch this movie I'm like semi-interested in because of Bill Murray, and then I go downstairs and then the rest of the night is football. That seemed like a smart play for me. Yeah. The X Factor, what I didn't expect is my father being like, that was nominated for Best Picture. Put it on the big screen, son.
Yeah. Oh man. So you guys rewatch it this weekend or did
no? I watched it. I don't know when they're gonna rewatch it, if they are, especially now that I'm home working. So they're not gonna have like. I mean, they are, and I could suggest that they give it a shot, because I think that it's very different when the Super Bowl isn't what you're gonna follow it up with. Yeah. I really enjoyed it this time.
Well, that time you were really like enthralled with Tom Brady, and now this time you got to watch it and you really hate Tom Brady. So
I mean, there you go. No, I think, and there's still parts of that film that just straight up do not work for me, and it's right at the end. It's a Borat 2 situation where I really enjoy the film.
What do you think that she said to him?
I don't. It's what he said to her, and I bet it was just right. No, I don't care at that point, because her being spoilers for Lost in Translation, a almost 20-year-old movie, and double spoilers for Lost in Translation come 2022, if we're still say reporting, and we should be, right? I certainly hope that the end of the Trump presidency doesn't end the say report, but I'll acknowledge that there's a chance. I will do a very special episode on Lost in Translation that will like really look at it the way that we really look at things. But she's like such a petulant child when he sleeps with the lounge singer. And I'm like, he wasn't going to sleep with you. Nothing in this film led me to believe that he was going to sleep with you, Scarlett Johansson. This came out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I will have to rewatch it, because I will fully admit it's not like I sit down and watch it every weekend, so like I don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge of that film. But I mean, like I remember it being pretty heavily implied that they were kind of getting close, and like and it could be one of those things where like he did not feel the same way as her, and maybe I need to really rewatch it for the nuances of it. But yeah, I mean, part of it could also be that when I watched it, I was at the age where like you would relate to Scarlett Johansson. It's the kind of film where like growing up, you should relate to Scarlett Johansson, and then as you get older, you relate more to Bill Murray. Like
right.
that's the idea of that film. And so like I very much was on board with her being pissed off in those moments, but it definitely could be skewed by that for sure.
I mean, I think it really speaks to the whole Sofia Coppola creates these strong female characters, and like just in that one moment, it feels like it betrays everything.
Yeah.
Like, and also it might speak to my own ideas about sexuality and how important it is to actually have sex with someone. I'm a big fan of platonic love, right? Have I told you yet that I love you this week, Cajun? I love you. No, I'm a big fan of platonic love, and I totally understand that idea of like, we love each other in this moment because we are stranded in the same rapids. Yeah. And we have this love and affection, but summer camp's over in a week. So
and like I should make it clear that like as much as I believe that Sofia Coppola is very much like an empowered woman herself and likes to put empowered women on screen, I mean, first of all, she's human, and like to hold anyone and to hold any one person up as like the bastion of an entire movement, like Sofia Coppola is not the end all be all of feminism in film for sure.
So totally not my point either. I'm sorry if I implied that.
No, but from that, right, the idea that like it is almost disappointing in that moment to see her behave that way. I have a lot of different feelings towards that, right? Like on the one hand, like she's allowed to.
You're allowed to make mistakes, obviously.
Right. Yeah. But and the other side of that is also like like Sofia Coppola is also coming from a very specific form of feminism, where like she is so empowered in her relationship with Bill Murray that like when that power is taken away, her reaction is a thing, and like there's a lot of like mouth like lip service that you can give to that reaction to try and justify it, but also like the fact that you're now watching it almost 20 years out from when that movie was created, it's gonna skew like the results, right? Like there's something to be said about that too. Yeah, I think it's definitely one worth like revisiting, especially because it was such a hugely impactful film. You know, it's one of those ones that really kind of pushed the idea of the artist filmmaker, like the not independent, not indie independent film, right? Like the fact that it is such a heavy-handed effort by Sofia Coppola is like important for filmmaking. You know, it's around that same time that we see things like Little Miss Sunshine become really important and stuff like that, right? Like we see like the rise in the art house film still being funded by the major studio type situation.
It's the indie film. It's the birth of the indie film. And
Yeah.
granted, it's not the birth of the indie film because, well, maybe it is. Maybe Lost in Translation is the birth of the indie film. I'm not 100% ready to rubber stamp it right now, but I think Napoleon Dynamite is a year after Lost in Translation, if
And that's
memory
like,
is serving.
yeah,
And that is also
Napoleon
very
Dynamite
much...
yeah, Napoleon Dynamite is like Napoleon Dynamite is like the poster child, like apex of that, but certainly not the first for sure.
Right. But it's just like those are the things that go through my mind are I had never even considered that this film looks, I mean, it looks like it's made by an independent filmmaker. But the reason why we use that term indie is because it's independent only in look and creation. This movie had a budget. You know how I know this movie had a budget? It was shot on location in Japan.
Yeah, with two very prominent American actors
Yeah.
at the time.
with Bill Murray and the like shining star of the cinema. Like I thought that was her breakout film, and when I'm like she was in Home Alone 3, so it was that, Ghost World, and then Lost in Translation in my head, and then I go and I check and I'm like, oh no, you were wrong. That you were so wrong, Devin. She had done so many things prior to Lost in Translation. And as I walk through this wicked world, I can't say any more or we'll get DMCA'd.
I will say this one last thing about Scarlett Johansson. She carries on that exact character archetype that she likes to fall into much later in her career, to the point where she plays that role. She almost plays that role beautifully in Chef with Favreau, who is like a close friend of hers at that point,
Right.
because he's now directed her in Iron Man, and but the role that she has in Chef is almost in that same vein, and it's one of the few times where I feel like she does get dialed back, and part of that could just be because Favreau's just so good at
Such a
working
good
with
director.
her.
Yeah.
Well, right, and as a director, but like but yeah, and so like it's not a character that she's even really grown out of, and you know, maybe she never will. Like, she does it so well. But
If Ben Stiller can be everyman Tony Perkins and Derek Zoolander, or some variation of those three, like I'm fine with Scarlett Johansson having the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
she's a badass. She still has badass ability, and not just as Black Widow. Jojo Rabbit, which is a film that I feel like we didn't talk enough. No one talked enough about it. Like everybody was just like, it's Taika Waititi, and that's hilarious, and that's enough for us. But it like her character is the emotional heart of that film, and even my mother was like, you know, I've never really liked Scarlett Johansson, but I think I need to reassess that. And
yeah.
I can't I find it hard not to believe that my mother's opinion of Scarlett Johansson was not A, influenced by that faithful Super Bowl day viewing of Lost in Translation, and B, literally, like you hear, you know, like the hangout house in TV shows, our house was that. So like all you would hear is people talking about Scarlett Johansson in this house.
Yeah.
And like,
No, I mean, it's the same shit that people had to break out of, like Jennifer Aniston had to break out of in, you know, with Leaving Friends, right? Is like the idea that she was seen as this sex symbol, very specific character type, and like to see her do anything else really threw people for a long time. And so like, you know, then you see something like much later in her career, like Cake or something, like and it really throws people because they're just like, oh, I never really thought about them as an actress, and it's just like that's not fair. like,
No.
and I get it, but like, yeah, you really should reconsider some of the thoughts that you had on these people from 20 years ago, because it's again different context for like taking these things in.
Not only that, I mean, like, what a terrible way to live your life is like, I made this opinion 20 years ago, and I'm not gonna let it shift, right? Yeah. Change is one of the inevitabilities of life.
Yeah,
and
it's one of the reasons why I love doing kind of the rewatches and the revisits of anything that we do, music, TV, like movies, games, any of that sort of stuff, because like it changes the context in which you take something in. I mean, going back to the Myst conversation, like playing that game 30 years ago, less than 30 years ago, 25 years ago, sitting at my computer in my parents' like den with the guidebook next to me as I like went through it, was nothing like this weekend of sitting down and actually figuring the puzzles out and talking to people my age and working through stuff and puzzling through stuff. The impact that game had on me when I was a kid was huge and important, will never change. But my opinion on that game and what I actually feel about it has been so dramatically rebuilt, reinforced, and altered slightly, because like there's parts of that game now that I legitimately enjoy that as a kid I hated, and there's parts of that game that as a kid I loved that as an adult I'm just like, oh, that's actually a little boring. Like there's a specific puzzle where you just spend forever doing the same thing and like you're just staring at a dark screen with like noises happening for like way too long, and it could have been 5 minutes faster, and it wasn't. At the time when I was a kid, though, it was a fucking blast because I was in front of my computer and I was doing this thing and I kind of got it and I was like, yeah. And like now I'm just like over it, right? Like and that changes things. But then there's parts of that game that like I didn't appreciate FMV when I was a child in the way that I love and appreciate FMV now. And there's some good little tidbits of FMV in that game that are just deliciously like they're grainy and poorly acted, and I love it. I love every piece of it.
What I have to recommend then, if you're like going to reevaluate FMV and what that is, Wand of Gamelon and the other CDI Zelda game, I played those. I really enjoyed them.
I know.
Years later.
You mentioned them, and I played those when I was not a kid. I bootlegged them when I was sitting in a dorm room in URI, so probably 15 years ago. Yeah. Right, yeah. So like I played through those, and I hated them. They were just funny to play through. It was like a meme to get a little altered and play the CDI Zelda games. Like that was what we did. But like, so I'll have to go back to them because you've said this before on the show, and I've given you shit about it. But like, I will give you in the context of this conversation that I should probably revisit those.
Yeah, right. If you're a listener of the Say Report, right, your homework, and it's not real homework, but it's just something, 2021, we're still, most of us are in quarantine, right? The world is not going to be changing anytime soon. I mean, who knows what's going to happen on Thursday, right? And I can't wait to talk about it next episode. But like, revisit something that you may have had a staunch opinion on at a earlier time in your life, and see if maybe the benefit of experience and time has changed that opinion in some way. Go into it with an open mind. I think that'll be an interesting way to spend some time.
I love you so much. You have brought us kind of to the end of this show, and I want to make sure you're okay with that, because we got a thing that we got to talk about, but we should save it for the end.
Okay. I mean, I just want to, I really, pre-show, we were talking about who's the sidekick, Rocky or Bullwinkle, and I'd really like to have that conversation.
Yeah, I know, but you've brought us so beautifully to something that we definitely have to make sure we remind everybody about. But
So in true Say Report fashion, right, we will have the great debate about which is the sidekick, Rocky or Bullwinkle, next Say Report. And if you want to weigh in,
a good balance up against some good like politics that we're going to have to address. Yes.
So if you want to weigh in, if you want to share which one you believe is the sidekick, Rocky or Bullwinkle, get us on Twitter at the Say Report. And I look forward to this discussion because Siegen's right. I feel like I did cue something up. And Siege, if you want to knock him down, the dominoes are yours.
Well, in the spirit of revisitation and reassessing, I want to congratulate Devin and tell him what a great time that I had. We have put out the first official full episode of our new show, the ASCU. It is out there for your consumption, but it is the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. It is our attempt to kind of delve into the waters of what is an Adam Sandler cinematic universe, what constitutes a cinematic universe, and like why we feel like Adam Sandler is still really important. And I mean, like, he obviously is. I mean, financially, he still brings it in for a lot of people. You don't pen a Netflix deal like the one that he got if you aren't somebody that can bring in the money. Yeah, we put a show up last week, and I could not be more proud of it. I've listened to it twice since we put it up, and I love it. It's some of the best work we've done.
Thank you. I didn't realize that you had listened to it twice. Thank you for that. I've been trying to wait for the time to listen back, and now that I'm not driving anywhere, I don't have those drive moments.
No, but... yeah, I legitimately, the first time I listened through it, it was because we were driving. Every now and then we take a long trip out to the fancy grocery store, and we did that, and so I listened to it on the way there and back. Yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. So yeah, that is out there. Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe. That's how you find it on all of the podcast sites. Everybody accepted us, even Amazon, right? So we've been acquired twice by Jeff Bezos. But yeah, and listen, the first one is Billy Madison, so you know it seems like the logical place to start, and it is definitely something. It's more focused than the everything fest that the Say Report is. I got to be honest, I didn't think that this episode was going to feature everything that this episode featured, because like I said, -2 in the preparation column. But yeah, go listen, and you know I would like to hear what you think, and. It's just something else that we're doing because, you know, this is fun to be what this is. And it's also fun to get to flex some of our other pop cultural ability to just sound like a total fucking wanker.
Yeah, no, I mean, like the key was always in wanting to create a second show is that we were always having a blast doing this. It was never that we were getting tired of this. We loved doing this with you guys and with each other and all that. It was the idea that we wanted something that was maybe more focused than this, because I'm not gonna lie, I love sitting here with less than 2 seconds of preparation, believe me, every week where we sit down and that is a joy to me. But having something, especially in these times that we were like, you know, pushing ourselves was important. And I like I said, couldn't be prouder of what we did because it's a blast.
Wonderful. I also is there one more week before the end of this month? How many weeks are left in
we still
January?
have one more. We still have one more in January. We've got an episode on the 25th coming out, and then
all right, excellent.
After that we'll be on February 1st. Yeah.
So what I would like to remind everybody about is it's the 5th season. So we used to do very special episodes on just the even months, but we're now going to extend that to have one very special episode every month. Because like we just want to set ourselves up to fail. I feel like that's like we're just going to overextend ourselves with this show. So next Thursday, which I guess would be the 28th, if math works still, right? Who knows? No, that should be correct. Yeah, the 28th, we're going to release a very special episode, and now seems like the time to let you know what that episode is going to be about.
Yeah.
And that's going to be is a bigger one. So if you do prep before the very special episodes, I'd start now. It's a little thing that we're calling To Riverdale and Back Again to Riverdale.
Yeah. Look, you first came to me with this idea, and I was not pleased. And I will say that with time, my anger has morphed into a gleeful displeasure.
Good. That's exactly where I'm at. We're exploring Archie and Jughead and Betty and Veronica in their 1991 made-for-TV film Return to Riverdale.
And Moose.
No, to Riverdale and back. Oh, I forget about Moose and Reggie. Fuck Reggie, though. Yeah.
No, Reggie's the fucking worst.
Yeah, well, so we're going to Riverdale and back, which is a made-for-TV movie from 1991, and then we're also going to look at the first season of Riverdale.
Yeah.
So
we're going to be looking at the television adaptations of our boy Archie and the adventures, the many adventures that him and his crew get in.
Yeah. So that's something, if you want to be prepared for that. First of all, more Say Report content coming to you each month. And also just this one that's a lot. That's something like 16 hours that you'll need to consume if you want to be 100% on board with where we are.
And remember that we don't put nearly that much effort into every week. So if you don't want to put that,
that's why they're very special episodes. Yeah. But that's it. So anything else you'd like to add, Sejan, before we send this one off to the vault?
No, I super excited to start off this new season with you, man. Congratulations on 4 seasons down. One season more to go.
And then the movie, right? We got to get 6 seasons and a movie. That's the goal. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I didn't want to do it in our 208th episode because, it would have felt wrong. But I'd be remiss if I didn't announce the fact that we have now surpassed Strong Bad Emails, right? He has 207 emails. This makes 209 Say Reports. So, Strong Bad, you're cool. You're great. You're a good guy. You type with boxing gloves. I can't do it. I've tried. And go out and watch it because of the project. I think it's like Rumble or Ramble. I'm not sure the name of it. Flash has been semi-secured, and HomestarRunner.com is still out there. So
and a lot of stuff, like the important stuff like Homestar and things like that, they were getting converted to other file formats anyway, because anybody that doesn't know, you can get the entirety of the Strong Bad Emails on DVD, which is
I got them for Christmas. That was another gift I got.
Oh man, an investment I am planning to make soon. But yeah, go and check those out.
Yeah, go check it out. But it felt odd as someone who grew up and cut my teeth with Strong Bad Email in terms of like weekly content for us to surpass him with this show. So Strong Bad, thank you for laying the pathway, and eat our dust, WrestleMan. All right. So if you would like to talk to Sejan about Myst, Riven, or any other point-and-click adventures, you can find him on Twitter at Siege vs. the World.
And if you can think of any other questionable duos and think you have an opinion on who the sidekick may be or not, hit Devin up at Devin D. Decker.
You've just set up people to question which one of us is the sidekick, right? Ooh. And there's only one person who can answer that question without any issue. Will, let's take us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.